Ayanda, she's standing by with our health minister. Today is World Cancer Day, and let's find out what the minister has to say. Good morning again, Ayanda.
A very good morning to you once again, Leanne. The hustle and bustle of an early morning at the Bara taxi rank is in full swing. People going to work, some going to school, and it brings to mind the question, how many of us are traveling with cancerous cells in our bodies that we simply are not aware of? And as you can imagine, that is why it's so important to have activations like this. It is one of 9 that will be happening across the country, in fact, across the province in Gauteng in partnership with Santako and Pink Drive. The taxi drivers behind us are not too impressed by our presence here today because they want to make a living, you can imagine. But the minister says, well, you can't really earn a living if you've got cancer and you don't really know it. And it might just come back to bite you in the you-know-what. So that's why we're here, and that's why it's so important, this World Cancer Day. But let's speak to Minister Dr. Motsoaledi to tell us a little bit more about what we can expect from the department throughout the month. Minister, it's such a pleasure to have you with us. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Ayanda. Good morning to the viewers out there.
Talk to me a little bit about what this activation means to you as a department.
Well, firstly, let me thank Pink Drive and say I'm very proud of them, because they are ahead of everybody else. Because when you talk of issues like cancer, many people really are not aware of what's going on. If you were to stop anybody in the streets and ask them, many women all know that the commonest cancer that is killing South African women is breast cancer, followed by cervical cancer, cancer of the womb. And when you come to men, it will be prostate cancer, followed by colorectal cancers. Many people don't even know that. We see them in the hospital when they are sick, when it's already very late, when the cancer has spread. So detecting it early saves life. Literally, it saves life because we can do something about it. But how many people march in a hospital and say, please check me for cancer? Or to a clinic or to any doctor and say, please check me for cancer? They hardly ever do that. So campaigns like this, we're very proud of them, especially that it happens among taxi people who will go around spreading the message. They carry a lot of people in any 1 month. They can spread the message to them. Their members also obviously will be suffering from some of these cancers.
There is a debate out there when it comes to cancer among black people. And one school of thought would suggest that it's on the increase, perhaps because of westernization or the food that we eat or the environment that we're in. Another school of thought would suggest it's always been there and perhaps we had a different name for it or a different a title for it. Where are we sitting when it comes to cancer and black people in particular, because we're at a taxi rank?
I don't know why there are many schools of thought. There can only be one, and it's clear and straightforward. The fact is, about 30 or 40 years ago, the world was divided into 2. What used to be called the third world and the first world. It is now called the developed and the developing world. It was taken, and it was literally like that. That in the developing world, people die of communicable diseases. That means diseases like TB, like malaria, like HIV, AIDS now, etc. And in the first world, they were dying of lifestyle diseases like cancer, hypertension, etc. That has completely changed. That has completely changed, and we call that an epidemiological shift. So there definitely has been a shift around the world where non-communicable diseases like cancer, hypertension, diabetes are now everywhere, even among the black people. So I'm not sure where the schools of thought come from. There's only one, that there's been a huge epidemiological shift around the world. That's why we now call it the double burden of disease. In South Africa, it's actually described as a quadruple burden of disease, because on this burden of non-communicable disease, we still have a burden of HIV, AIDS, and TB on one side. We've got a burden of maternal and child mortality, but we also have got a burden of injury and violence, and that's why it's quadruple. But in many countries, it's a double burden. So it's there's been a very clear change in the world, and there's no debate about it.
What is the financial burden on the state for treating cancer? I mean, I'd imagine it's quite an expensive thing to treat. I mean, when you go into hospitals, you need radiation or you need medication of some sort. What is the burden on your budget? Does it carry?
Huge, Ayanda. Actually, let me put it that way. When the World Health Organization called Ministers of Health in Moscow in April 2010 to prepare for heads of state meeting in New York to take a stand about non-communicable diseases, it was announced that if we don't take drastic steps, in a decade or two, no Minister of Health anywhere in the world will be able to stand in front of Parliament and announce a credible health budget. It means whatever health budget they announce, it will never be enough. It's actually scary, not only for health budget, for the whole development. That's why now non-communicable diseases like cancer, hypertension, diabetes are part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So it's huge. Look at breast cancer. We say it's number one killer amongst women, but what is the treatment? It's about R500,000 for treatment for those who are treated on a drug like Herceptin. So the cost can be enormous, and that's why prevention, primary health care, detecting early, what Pink Drive is doing, that's why it's superb. Because if they wait until they get into hospital, some may not even be able, in fact not some, quite a large number. Even those who are on medical aids are not are able to raise that amount of money. I'm sure you have heard of many cases where medical aids have to be taken to court, refusing to pay for breast cancer because they say it's too expensive. So what about 84% of South Africans who are not on medical aid? You can imagine. So it's a huge thing.
And in closing, Minister, I do believe that we do have some nurses around us who are going to be showing us a bit of a demonstration as you give us your message in closing. I'm going to ask them to just come a little bit closer, and maybe just before they start with the demonstration, they're going to be showing us exactly how they test, etc. But in closing, put on your stethoscope and your white coat and tell us your message as briefly as possible for South Africans in this World Cancer Day.
Well, my message is just one, that early detection saves life. Get detected, know your status, and look for help. There's no better way to put it. Men must know that they must test for prostate cancer. Women must know that they must test for breast cancer and cervical cancer.
All right, let's leave it there. And thank you so much. Our minister is practicing what he preaches now and taking that test as we leave it there, at least for now.
Minister, please, can we have your consent by signature?